Hey guys, so in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to put in new raspberry plants or raspberry canes in really late winter or early spring. So you can see behind me, we just tilled up the top of this because it was all grass. So this has just been our yard. So we just did a really light tilling on the top of the soil to get the grass out of there and so that we can actually dig down and have that soil soft enough, work in some amendments, and to get our raspberry canes planted. You can see I've ran through with the tiller about 3 times just to break up the sod and that top layer. And so we've still got some pretty large clumps of grass in here, and we want to get those removed. You don't want to have a lot of weeds or a lot of competing grass with your new raspberry plants or as they're growing. So this is an easy way, instead of trying to break this all up by hand, to get the grass out. And of course, after I rake all of this grass out, then it can go straight into the compost pile. Now, if you don't have a tiller and we were planning ahead of time, you can see I still have some snow back there that's getting melted. You could put down in the fall, if you know you're going to be planting in the springtime, you can put down some dark black plastic that would kill off with the heat over the periods of a month, and that would kill the grass, and then you could dig that up and remove that by hand. It still is a lot easier if you're putting in some new bed and you're needing to break up the ground that is bad. This has been our yard, and prior to that for years it was pasture. So this is pretty compact soil on the top. So having that tiller to just break up the top layer really helps. For more info on raising and growing your own food, make sure that you hit subscribe when we put up a new video every Wednesday. So we ended up going back over a couple more times. So we ended up tilling it probably about 6 times just to make sure that you get all of that top chunk of roots and grass out. Otherwise, it quickly reroots and takes over the entire bed. So when you are putting your raspberries in, we want to have good soil depth, and you want your soil to be well draining, because raspberry roots can quickly start to rot if the soil isn't well draining. Now, they do need to have moisture. They're not really drought tolerant per se, but you want to make sure that they are in well draining soil. So we're going to go ahead and put some amendments in and start to get them in the ground. So we want to plant each raspberry cane about 12 inches deep. So we're just going to use the shovel and kind of break some of this soil up and create our first planting hole. Now, raspberries do best with a pH level of the soil between 5.5 and 6.5. So they do like it to be a little bit more on the acidic side. Now, before you ever amend your soil for acidity, it's really important that you know what the pH level is. So I highly recommend doing a soil test so that you know. And below this video in the resource section, I'll have some links so that you can go further into my soil amending and testing guide so that you know how to test your soil. They also like some good compost with a little bit of manure. They like very fertile soil, especially at the planting time. So I'm going to be adding to the hole here. I have got some compost that's also got some manure in it that's been going since the fall, so this is not too hot. And I'm going to add this into the hole at the time of planting. I'm also going to add a small amount, so just a half a tablespoon of sulfur powder. Now, you want to make sure that you get elemental sulfur. We don't want anything with aluminum in it, and this is going to help acidify my soil just a little bit. My soil here in the Pacific Northwest is already fairly mildly acidic, so I'm just going to be adding a small amount, and we're going to work this into the hole. Now, if you're planting in the fall, you probably don't want to add any sulfur in the fall because it needs the moisture and the warmth in order for it to break down and be into the soil. And you don't want to add a lot to the planting hole either because you can burn the roots. So it's really important, I can't stress that enough, that you do a soil test first for your pH level before using anything to either acidify it, or if you're using lime, if it's too acidic, to bring it up. So we're gonna work this into our hole, and then we're gonna get our first cane. So these are bare root canes. That's what you call your raspberry plant. And I have had them in a bucket with a little bit of water. I thought I was gonna get to planting these yesterday, and I didn't. So we've soaked their roots. You can see the roots are nice and wet. You don't ever wanna let them dry out. And then I put a little bit of straw in the bucket so it didn't freeze overnight, even though it's really warm and sunny right now. So before you plant your bare root plants, when you get them, we want to make sure that the roots are not thirsty. So I let these soak, just the roots. You don't want to let it go up and over the cane part. I let these soak in water overnight, and I thought I was going to get these planted yesterday. So I actually started them in the afternoon and realized I was not going to get to it. So we drained the majority of the water. You want to make sure you're just soaking the roots, not up above on this cane part of it. And then we put some straw in the bucket so that they did not freeze overnight. Even though it's really sunny right now, we're still getting some really cold, freezing, hard frost temperatures in the evenings. So these raspberries that I'm putting in, this is the Cascade Delight raspberry, is a summer bearing raspberry, meaning about June through July, I'm going to get all of the crop at once. Whereas everbearing, I've got some of those too, those will bear me a summer crop, and then I'll also get a fall crop. And it's important to know what type they are, because that will determine how you prune your raspberries. And I have got another video on that. I'll make sure that it pops up at the end for you so you can watch that on pruning and trellising your raspberries after you get them planted. So we want to make sure that we have got down here plenty of room for our roots. So you can kind of measure and see, because we want to have the soil come up to the top of these roots by about 1 inch and cover them. And so this is not quite deep enough, so we need to do a little bit more digging. There we go. Now that's nestled nice down in there. So I want to make sure all of this, that dirt that I had worked the sulfur and the compost in, goes back over top. Now we're going to give this a good watering. The water will also help push that soil down if I've got any air pockets, and it'll let me see how well it's draining. So you can see where I've had the water, the soil is beginning to settle. And I want to make sure that I don't have any roots exposed. So there's a little bit of root exposure here. So we're just going to go ahead and put a little bit more of this loose dirt over top. And then we're going to lightly tamp that down. That's going to help remove any air pockets as well, and just get it established. You don't want to press too hard. We don't want to damage the roots, but a good firm tamping down is not going to hurt anything. Now for the spacing, we want about 3 feet between each plant, because this is going to send up multiple canes, and that's how they spread. And you want to make sure that you've got enough room for growth, and also that you've got enough room when they send up all their shoots and they leaf out and start to give you berries, that they're not too crowded. So about a 3 feet between each cane is just right. You also want to make sure that you are planting all of your everbearing raspberries together, or in this case my summer bearing, that I am planting all of them together, because oftentimes they can have not only different pruning but sometimes different trellising as well. So we want to keep like varieties together. Hey guys, so there you have it. We have got 11 of our raspberries planted, and for a family of 4, these 11 raspberries will take us through an entire year without having to purchase any from the store during the fresh and in-season time, and also allows us enough to preserve to take us through the rest of the year. So if you've enjoyed this video and you want to raise a good portion of your own food, make sure that you hit subscribe so you get notified each week when we have a new video that goes live, and make sure that you check out the resources below this video that will help you do that even further. Now when you put in new raspberry canes like we've done here, the first set of ones that we put in, which are our summer bearing, these ones won't produce any fruit this spring, because the fruit is produced on the 2nd year's growth, and of course these won't have that being this soon, so they'll produce the following year. The everbearing raspberries, however, they won't produce for me this spring. but they should give us our first harvest off of them come this fall. Now, the great thing about raspberries is, unlike a lot of other fruit production, you're going to get a harvest either the first year or the second year. You don't have that long wait span. And they are self-pollinating, meaning I don't actually have to have these different varieties, so you don't have to worry about cross-pollination when it comes to your raspberries. You can have just one single variety and they will set fruit for you. Let me know in the comments section below if you are enjoying this video and if you have any fruit production on your property or homestead. I'd love to know what you're growing. I can't wait to see you in the next video.